Oh, we made it.
And
They said it couldn't be done.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to 8 Bits, the show where we interview the people behind the tech. My name is Brandon Minnick. I work as a developer advocate at Microsoft, and with me is our new permanent co-host, PJ Metz. PJ, welcome to the show. Welcome back.
I am not qualified for this job. Hi. Oh, this is so, because now there's people who are going to be listening who don't know the story. There's going to be people who are watching who know us but don't know what's going on. They just see a cute pastel background, and also me and you. I just realized our personalities are very well defined right now by the visual. So for those of you listening, you'll have to check out the stream sometime. But thank you. I'm the new co-host, guys. We made it.
Yeah, that's right. So friends of the show will remember PJ. PJ has co-hosted the show many, many times. He was kind of our go-to backup host if one of us couldn't make it. But we are promoting PJ into the hot seat because we love him so much. And we are kicking off a totally new, revamped series of 8-Bits. Yeah, like PJ said, you'll see all sorts of new branding, new color palettes, new logos. New season, new look, new us.
Yeah, brand new me. And really, this all fits in with we're trying to come out of like a world that's been in turmoil for coming on 2 years now, right? We're trying to figure things out, and it feels good to sort of rebrand yourself and to really make a change and step out and be like, this is the new me. And the new me, in this case, is a host of a show that really helped me get started, honestly. I wouldn't be the education evangelist at GitLab that I am today were it not for this show and Brandon and the former co-host Chloe. Shout out, Chloe. We miss you already. But we are living on in the pastels and the great 80s vibes of your influence, for sure. Oh, yeah, and now I'm kicking my camera, too. That's the way we do it here, y'all.
Give the people the content they want. So PJ,
I made a big deal before the show about how when I touch my desk, my camera doesn't move, and I'm really smart, and then I kicked it. So this is awesome.
Yeah, that happens. I used to do that all the time, and eventually just got fed up with it because even typing on my keyboard would jiggle the camera because the camera was sitting on the desk. So I went out and I bought one of those security camera mounts, bolted it to the wall, and then that's what I attached the camera to right now. So if we ever move my desk, I'll have to do some drywall repair and poke some holes in whatever new wall we move our desk to.
That's right. Some minor home improvement.
Yeah. But PJ, what's new? Tell me what you got going on.
Listen, I just got back from my very first conference. I attended KubeCon in Los Angeles. It's my first tech conference. I worked the booth. I met some people in real life. I met Joe Carlson, Matt Stratton, a bunch of team members as well, including some very special people in my life that I met for the actual second time. But we'll talk about that later. But first conference is kind of it's exciting and like terrifying, and like I can't say like, oh, this is my first time anymore. I used to always use the excuse, oh, I'm new at this, I'm sorry, but I can't now. I'm an expert.
Yeah, I mean, one conference. You still got the I'm new at this in your back pocket.
I hold on to it.
This is only my second conference. Yeah,
that's right. I used to use that when I was a teacher, though. I was a teacher for 11 years, and I'd be like, oh, guys, sorry, it's my first day. And it's like March.
Oh, well, I have been heads down in this new tool we're creating called the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit. .NET MAUI, for all my C# developers out there, is basically the evolution of Xamarin. It's a way you can make iOS and Android apps in C#. So they're still totally native. Basically, all MAUI does is wrap all of the Objective-C APIs from iOS. It wraps all of the Java APIs from Android into C#. So you have all the same APIs you know and love. When you compile it, it compiles to a native app. And MAUI stands for multi-platform application user interface because you can also share your UI code, share your business logic, and still get native apps out of it. So we are building this thing called the .NET Maui Community Toolkit, and it's pretty cool. It's totally built and created by the community. So we have community pull requests come in where folks add in, those little things that when you're building an app, you probably copy paste from app to app. Those little things, why copy paste them? Let's add them into this toolkit. Let's share them with other people, and then that way we don't have to copy paste our code across the apps. So it's really a super helpful library that .NET Maui developers can use, and we've been working very hard on it. So if you Google .NET Maui Community Toolkit, you'll find it. Please check out the GitHub repo. We have lots of open issues or new features that we want to implement that all have help wanted tags. So help us out.
Be a buddy.
Check it out today.
That's right. That's so cool. Like the idea of like this community toolkit where people talk about what is helpful and useful to them, and then it can be implemented and created is very exciting. And you have to have a strong community for that. You have to have people who want to contribute. And a large part of making a strong community are DevRel people, which come in a lot of different flavors, right? We've got developer advocates, and we've got developer relations, and we have something called a developer evangelist that I've heard of as well. And I happen to have one. I don't know if you mind, but can I bring a friend on who knows a lot about being a developer evangelist?
Let's bring him in the show.
Holy smokes. Folks, thank you for tuning in. Like to bring on and introduce Brendan O'Leary from GitLab. Yeah.
Hey, welcome to the show, Brendan.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, you guys. I'm really excited to be here.
Oh my God, I'm just so happy.
So PJ led off with a really good question that if you're new to the industry, but even if you've been in the industry for 20 years, you probably have the same question. PJ listed developer advocate, developer relations, and developer evangelist. And Brendan, let's first let you introduce yourself, but break down what you are out of those three.
Who are you and why are you here?
That's right.
So I'm Brendan O'Leary. I work as a developer evangelist at GitLab on our community team with PJ. I got to see him in Los Angeles this past week, which was fantastic. We'll talk about that for sure. I think the real answer to the question, what's the difference between a developer evangelist and advocate, or developer relations, DevRel, isn't a great definition defined. We've gone through a lot of iterations of it at GitLab. So GitLab, the open source project's been around for 10 years. We actually just celebrated our 10-year anniversary back on October 8th. That was the first commit to Git. GitLab, sorry, not commit to Git. First Git commit to GitLab. It's, words are fun. And so because of that, I think we've evolved a lot over that time, right? So generally when you talk about, I think the umbrella term is developer relations, right? For the things that we all do. And the thing is that can mean a lot of different things at a lot of different companies, right? At a small open source startup, the first developer relations hire is often one of the first, very early, right? And they might be, there might be before there's a product manager hired. And so they're like part-time product manager figuring out product market fit. And it might be before there's any marketing people hired. So they're, again, a big part of the product market fit early part. There's community to manage, right? If you've got an open source project, I'm not telling Brandon anything he doesn't know. There's a lot to do. It sounds great to build a community tool. It is fantastic, but there's a lot of work to get it there, right? To get the issues in a state where people can contribute to them, to make sure that you're, able to review those pull requests or merge requests that come in. Like you've got a lot of work to do around community management, and then, interacting with the community and answering their questions and making sure they know, how to use this new Maui thing. And, I used to know Xamarin and now I'm trying to figure out a Maui. Like, what's that? Do I get to go to Hawaii? Like, what's the deal? And so that's a lot of different hats that, get worn, especially in a small open source startup. And so as you mature, we now at GitLab have been around for a while, and we've got this massive community team. So we have a community team that has folks that are focused on the contributor experience, and those, we have, I think, over 2,200 code contributors to GitLab over the life of it, and almost like 100 merge requests a month that come in from the wider community, not our engineers. So there's a whole, there's a group that deals with that, and then there's folks that deal with different pieces of the community, like our open source partners or our education partners, right? In PJ's case. And so we've kind of like narrowed down those hats. We have a little bit more of a mature community organization. So I get to focus on, interacting directly with developers, spending time understanding their needs. Yes, relating that with our product folks, but again, we've got a whole product team together to help with that. And so I get to spend time kind of out in the community. I think that's where the evangelism word comes from. It's why we settled on it, as being like someone who's like an fierce advocate for it, and also out and in community, not kind of waiting and taking in things. So that's why I get to spend my time doing stuff like this and doing conference talks, going to conferences, if that's a thing again, which I hope
when
it
that's
is.
allowed. Yeah.
Yeah, I started this role in January of 2020, which is like a great time to start in
Perfect
time. And so yeah, that's what I do for GitLab.
Awesome. So there's a sense of like when you talk about going into the community, and when you talk about being an evangelist and like spreading the word, what is it that drew you to this as a career, as an idea? Why want to do that, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Yeah, her name is Chloe Condon. I don't know if you've heard of her. No, but seriously, Chloe was a huge influence in me in the beginning, and watching her bring her full authentic self to work was just really inspiring. But she's one of many folks that I was like watching and looking up to. Kelsey Hightower comes to mind from Google. Lots of folks that are bringing like humanity and technology together, and not just kind of like pitching, a cool new tech thing because it's the cool new thing to do in tech, or because it's the thing that's going to make them money. And so I'd kind of been doing that for a while. Like I started at GitLab when we were about 150 people in October of 2017. And so again, at that size of startup, everyone's an evangelist part-time, right? Everyone's doing it part-time. And so I had been doing it part-time. I'd been speaking here and there. And I really enjoyed that part of like being in the startup and doing it. Well, when you get to like 1,300 people like we are now, no one's a part-time anything. And so it kind of came to this point where I had to make a decision. And I had our then director of evangelism, her name's Priyanka Sharma. She now actually is the general manager of the CNCF, the folks where Kubernetes lives and all that. She had been like trying to get me to come do it full time for like, I think a year and a half. And I kept saying no and no. I was worried about the travel. Again, I've always traveled some for work, but I just had this vision of like getting on a plane for every DevOps days in every part of the world, which scared me a little bit. As much as I love DevOps days, like I didn't want to be at one every week, because I've got 4 kids at home, so that's a whole nother ball of wax. But finally, Priyanka talked me into it, and I think I talked myself into it. I was at a show at AWS reInvent, actually. Sorry, Brandon. And somebody came up to me and was like asking it like these questions, and I finally realized like, oh, they don't understand the concept of like Git in general. Like, oh, it's this folder, and you have your local repository, and then you have your remote repository. That's kind of a rough concept to just understand in general. And so I like grabbed a piece of like paper, and I started drawing on the back of it, and I drew, here's your little folder, and here's like your local repository commit stuff. And then you push it up to your remote repository, and then you pull stuff down that other people put. And I'm doing all this, like just explaining Git to this person, like nothing about GitLab. Like we were miles away from that. And I turned to one of my best friends and I said, well, that's the thing I would do for free. And I was like, well, then why don't you go work for Priyanka and do it and get paid to do it? And I was like, that's a really good point.
Brandon, you have kind of a similar. You got like recruited into being a DevRel, right?
Yeah, it's funny. I was thinking the same thing as Brendan. You were telling your story that, yeah, the developer relations team is, I'd still say, fairly new at Microsoft. It was just created in 2017. And actually, now that I say that, 4 years probably isn't considered new anymore. But yeah, I joined Microsoft because they acquired Xamarin, which is where I used to work. And so I just kind of got to come along for the ride and was really enjoying my new role. Microsoft has this team called the Global Black Belt team. And what it means is you are a technical expert in a very specific field. So obviously mine was mobile, but there's also like global black belts for anything like Kubernetes, Python, you name it. We've got a technical expert in it that can help customers create their apps. And so I was on the global black belt team, and yeah, one of the founders, Tim Hewer, who ended up being my future manager, reached out to me and he's like, "Hey, we're building this team over here on the on this side of Microsoft, and we think you'd be a great fit for it. Are you interested?" And when he reached out, I was like, "Nah, I'm good. I'm really happy where I'm at. Like, I'm on this cool thing. Like, I get to call myself a black belt, and I've always enjoyed helping developers build their stuff. I've been on both sides of sales, both pre-sales and post-sales. Post-sales, which some people call customer success, and very much like being on the success side, because you have to worry about paperwork. You know, you're not selling anything. It's literally just, hey, let me teach you what I know. Let me teach you best practices. Let me help you build that foundation so when you start creating your apps, you can get off and running. So yeah, I turned down my first offer too, and then I saw all these people in the community who I looked up to joining this team, and I was like, oh, what have I done? And so had to go back hat in hand to Tim. I was like, hey, you still got a seat available for me? I'd really like to be on this team now. And so luckily they did. I was really kicking myself because there's folks like Laurent Boujon, Jim Bennett, Matt Sokup, who are just amazing people who I looked up to in the Xamarin community. Saw that they joined the team, and I was like, oh, I could work with them. Like, this is who we're hiring. Yeah, Brendan, I totally agree with you. You mentioned developer relations is kind of the umbrella term, and so that's kind of how I define it too. Like, between developer relations, developer advocate, developer evangelist. Advocate and evangelist are probably the same thing, same different title, same role for an individual. Yeah. Whereas developer relations is more the industry or the org if it's in your company, because I don't say I work as developer relations, I work in developer relations. And yeah, I found mostly what people see is you give conference talks, you host podcasts like this, but in reality, it's more about what are you doing for the developer community? What tools are you giving them? What helpful sample apps, blog posts, introduction videos, and then also the feedback from the community, bringing that to the developer teams. Like we were talking about .NET MAUI earlier. There's been some bugs in it because it hasn't been released yet. It's still very much in preview, and working with the developer team. I've gone to the .NET team and been like, hey, the community is trying to do this in the toolkit. They can't do it. So this must be broken. Let's fix this. Like, these are high priority things that we need to surface. And yeah, there's been a couple things that, I mean, I'm the one that surfaced the issue, but I'm definitely not the first one to experience or discover it. But without working together, I don't know if some of these issues would have been solved before we release products. And I think that's a huge part of being in developer relations too, is listening, like taking that feedback from the people who are using your tools, bringing that to the product teams, making things better. Like, oh, you hate doing this? hey guys, we should probably stop doing this. Like the developers don't like it.
I think that's great, and I love the idea that it's about being like a good listener as much as I think a lot of people, when they think of people who are doing DevRel type work, they think of speakers and they think of people who are doing things like that. But the speaking only matters if you're listening to the issues, because you can go and talk on a topic, but if it doesn't matter, it doesn't help anybody. You know what I mean?
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, and unless you're really like Brandon was saying, doing it with people, right, and co-creating with them, like, also the talk is going to really not be valuable to anyone, right? Like, then it might as well have been like a pre-sales talk, right, that someone could get up and give, versus, you know, you apply some, you know, real world experience to what developers have to deal with every day, and how, you know, it can. I think one of the things I say often is, you know, I get to talk to people about what it's really like to ship code to production, right? And you get to like peel back a real onion, you know, all of the onion layers that are involved in that.
It's not like sales where you've got like a neat little like presentation where it's like, and then you just ship it, and it couldn't be easier.
Yeah, and even those who've been in sales engineering know that, like, that's great, but then you're going to get a question immediately after, like, yeah, okay, that's cool, but like, how does that really work?
Right. How do you really do it? Cool demo.
That's awesome. So one of the things I think is we've all kind of brought our personalities behind us. Brandon, you've got the "This is fine" dog behind you. I've got my inescapable gigantic amount of things behind me. It's all pastel and video game and all that stuff. And Brendan, you've got a neon sign behind you that says "You're like really pretty," and that's from Mean Girls, one of my most favorite films with a capital F of all time. I feel like you need to tell us what it is about Mean Girls that you like.
Sure. Well, next to that too, PJ, I'm flexing on you with all these conference badges.
With all the conference badges, just giant stack of like 20 of them.
No, my best friend Luca bought that for me. They know how much I love Mean Girls, and I also had a phone case. Although I got a new phone, I had a phone case that said "On Wednesdays we wear pink," and I don't know. Just Mean Girls to me is just like this fantastic moment in pop culture, like captured in a way that not many films can do. Like right before the downfall of Lindsay Lohan and like the loss of innocence there.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's a fun movie. It's one you can pick up and watch anytime it's on. And it's endlessly quotable, right?
Yeah. I think that's a lot of Tina Fey's influence on it.
Yeah,
is that it is really quotable, and anything Tina Fey has done has got like quotable lines for days. Kimmy Schmidt, 30 Rock, all of it is just great.
It's true. And yeah, I just really like the movie. And then, you know, when someone buys you an amazing present like that, like, you don't say no, and you put it right in the background so everyone can see.
On that note, if anyone would like to buy me a neon sign that says just about anything, honestly, feel free to purchase that for me, because I'd love it. I really would. I used to use that film all the time. My background is in high school education. I was a high school English teacher, and I used to use that Mean Girls all the time when I was teaching Julius Caesar. And the movie itself obviously makes tons of references to Julius Caesar, a tyrant who's in control, the underlings who want to take down the tyrant. But back when I started teaching in 2009, it was still kind of relevant. It's a film that came out in, I think, 2002. And the kids they would know it. They remembered it. It was a part of the collective consciousness at that moment. As I got on in teaching, and especially the last time that I tried to reference Julius Caesar to a bunch of seniors, this would be the 2020 school year, I said, so you guys know Mean Girls? And they were like, what? And I was like, Mean Girls. It's a Lindsay Lohan film about high school. And they were like, no, I know. So I found myself having to explain Mean Girls. And then I had to explain Julius Caesar because they didn't remember it from their sophomore year. And this is getting too convoluted. I wanted to just make a quick reference about something so they could understand Macbeth. And here I am explaining Mean Girls and Julius Caesar first.
Mean Girls to get to Julius Caesar to get to Macbeth. I like
That's
that.
right. It's a common path to travel for sure.
I think the ironic thing in that is, looking at the cast. We talked about how Tina Fey's in Mean Girls, but this cast is really ahead of its time. Like Brendan mentioned, it was Lindsay Lohan before she kind of devolved
fell out of public
into...
grace. Is, I believe the kind way to say it.
grace.
Yeah.
She's coming back though, but Rachel McAdams, Tina Fey, Tim Meadows, Amy Poehler, Anna Gasteyer. I'm reading this off the list. These aren't off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But
That's
like
right.
that is
I forgot
a
Anna
powerhouse cast.
It is.
And
It is.
they were all, probably the exception of Tim Meadows. He was probably the most well-known. Lindsay Lohan is a child actor, definitely, and Rachel McAdams is up and coming, but nobody was as big as they are today. And
No.
it's
And Amanda Seyfried too. It was like her.
Oh, that's right. Amanda
yeah.
Seyfried
Yeah,
as
yeah.
the dumb friend, right? I have ESPN.
Yeah.
My gosh.
Oh, fun Anna Gasteyer fact. I saw Anna Gasteyer as Elphaba on Broadway the first time I saw Wicked.
She's an amazing singer.
Yeah.
I had no idea. She's a great
Fantastic.
singer.
Fantastic. There's like a 2-minute pause when someone like that comes out on Broadway, though, for like everyone to clap. It's kind of annoying.
Yeah.
But it was nice to see her. And she did crush it. So
It's very different from when I was Elphaba and it was 2 minutes of booze. And they said, someone get that guy off the stage. He's ruining the show. And now I'm not allowed to go to that theater anymore. It is so it's so exciting to be able to bring your personality. And I think like when you talked about the people that inspire you, Brendan, like these are people who purposefully bring their personality and are unapologetically sharing themselves in a very specific way that helps. And this is not a normal thing for working in tech or work in general in the West. It was always hide your personality, don't let people know what you're like, don't talk about your private life, do work. And as developer relations has sort of shifted and changed in the 6 years that it's been an actual job and career that people can pursue, more and more authenticity seems to be the name of the game.
For sure, yeah. I mean, I think that's like a general trend as we see, like, folks trying to learn how to fit work into their life rather than the other way around. And so I think it's a really healthy thing for us to, be able to do that. And I think it also, I mean, when you develop something and you produce, software, and you put it into the world, you're really putting yourself out there, right? Like it or not. And so getting used to, putting your whole self out there just helps with that a lot, I think. And it humanizes it, again, in a way that, we're like technology for a long time, in the early days of the internet was like kind of this thing that wasn't part of us. And like now it's kind of part of society, like it or not, for better or worse, and plenty of worse. And so, but like, if we're going to figure out how to decrease the worse and like keep technology as part of society, right? It's not just, the internet's that thing that my son wants to dial into and I have to yell at my mom to get off the phone, right? Like, it's like, now it's this thing that's with us. And so how are we going to, I want to say embrace it, but use it for what it's good for, use it for the best that we can, and not let it, and do that consciously, not do it in a way that, it just happens to us.
Yeah, the ubiquitousness of tech. I think a lot of people have talked about how recent that is, but like honestly, I mean, 11 years ago is about when Facebook became publicly available for everybody, I think. Maybe like 2008-ish, unless I'm really messing up my timeline. Because Brandon, you and I went to UF, and I know you started a few years after me. I think your freshman year would have been when Facebook was available to UF students for the first time.
Yeah. So, I graduated high school in 2005, and when I was applying for colleges, I only applied to one school because I did this thing called early admissions at University of Florida, and you got to basically apply early on in your senior year, and you would also find out early on in your senior year. So, graduated high school in 2005, but found out in late 2004 that I got accepted into UF through their early admissions process, and the reason I only applied to them was if you get accepted into early admissions, you're legally, contractually obliged to attend. So I did. But yeah, I remember I couldn't wait to get my official University of Florida EDU email address. Because
ufl.edu.
yeah, because back in the day, Facebook was very college specific. And the only way you could get on it was with a official college email address that was from a college where Facebook was. So Facebook wasn't even at every school yet, let alone every person.
Let alone the whole world.
And,
yeah.
Yeah, I remember as soon as I got the acceptance letter and I got my email address, the first thing I did was created my Facebook account.
Nice.
It was like the new hotness, and I couldn't wait.
Man,
And
back when the wall was a literal single wall of text that anybody could edit.
You have to go look at it. So I'm only a year ahead of you, Brandon, right? So I graduated high school in 2004 and went to the
I'm the
university.
oldest one here.
Oh, PJ just had an existential life crisis.
See you later.
And he's gone. Yeah. So anyway, I remember. So when I went to the University of Maryland, College Park, and I remember when I started in then it would have been the fall of 2004. It was like, oh, Facebook's coming to Maryland in 3 weeks. Right, like it was like they were like rolling out schools. Right. So I remember it being rolled out to if you have a umd.edu address, you can get it.
Yeah, and then eventually, they just opened it up to any email address, and that was, I know, for a lot of us, time to scramble because when it was just your college friends, then you can imagine what college kids post to Facebook when only their college friends can see it.
Upload all your photos, make albums, tag people, and then they're like, "We're letting your mom get on. You have 2 months." So speaking of Facebook, I believe we have a word from one of our sponsors. So if you guys don't mind, we're gonna run a quick little ad here. Y'all enjoy this ad, why don't you? Hi, if you're hearing my voice, that means you've been listening to or watching 8 Bits with Brandon and PJ. And we're here to talk to you about your product and how it can help you in your life by do whatever your product does. So if you're an avid listener of the show or you watch us on Twitch, then you'll know that your product is right for you. What a great, compelling ad that was. Like, really, just great production quality. Very handsome spokesperson, actually. I can't believe that.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more.
Good looking.
I think there's going to be ad agencies just clamoring to understand who that is.
That was a Mets Canva collaboration for sure.
But truly, we are looking for help running the podcast. So if anybody out there does want to have us share their product or is interested in sponsoring 8bits, you can reach us at hello@8bits.tv and let us know. We are going solo on this, so we got costs. We've got to pay for the website.
To pay.
We've got to. So thank you to all our listeners, and please do follow up at hello@8bits.tv.
We could do what I don't know if you guys know the podcast My Brother and Me, but they are 3 very funny brothers from originally West Virginia, and they started the podcast, I want to say 11 or so years ago. They're on like episode 600 something right now, and it's an advice show. And what they do is they get on and they take questions from listeners and give terrible advice back, or they read Yahoo questions and give advice to the Yahoo question person. But their ad area is called the Money Zone. So they'll be like, all right, let's go to the Money Zone. And originally it was, you can give us $100 to read whatever you want to someone else. and I think they called it like the Jumbotron or something, and it would be like they would like Venmo him $100, send him an email, and be like, "All right, please read this," and it'd be like, "Dear Mariah, I have asked the brothers to tell you about how much I like you, and I want you to come with me to prom," or anything like that, and that's how they did ads for a while. So we'll do that. What I'm saying is, we'll do that if you guys want.
No, I was just assuming that like Squarespace already has seen that and is like calling right now.
That's right. They're
Squarespace,
ready.
MailChimp. We got them queued up. So
That's right. Stitch Fix. As you can tell, I don't need it. I've already got my Halloween Horror Nights Nightmare Before Christmas themed Hawaiian shirt. Everyone has one of these, right?
Obviously. Let's go to.
So yeah, switching gears a little bit. Brendan, this is so we've known of each other, but this is the first time we've really met, gotten to hang out, and what I know of you now, you mentioned you've got a couple kids at home, you've been working at GitLab for a long time, but I'd like to go way back. What got you interested in tech?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, if you want to go all the way back,
all the way.
My first computer was a Tandy 2000, I think, that my dad had, and I'm pretty sure I bricked it. You remember back in the day when you could brick a computer pretty good by like setting the graphics settings wrong?
I remember you don't shut down the computer. Like you don't tap the shutdown button.
It's done. And it's done. Yeah, I did that. I totally did that to my dad.
Reinstall Windows.
I did the same thing. I was like, what happens when I change the resolution? And the screen just went, and like I couldn't see anything. My Gundam Wing background was all like shot to pieces, and I couldn't find the mouse to change it back, and I didn't know what to do, and my mom was mad.
Yep, that sounds about right. But I think it taught me a good lesson, which is like, you kind of have to break things to learn, right? Like I don't think there's another way in this industry to learn, and I think that's what always like got me interested in it. Like I was kind of, I'd like science as a kid, so like that's kind of a boring, way into computers. But I didn't like, I always say I didn't like biology that much because I felt like it was too much, like too much rote memorization, which I know biology isn't once you really do biology. But like in the beginning when you're a kid, I wanted to like be able to figure things out. Like I wanted to be able to figure it out myself, right? Like I wanted to be able to get there with logic. And so that's what kind of drew me to it. But then the other thing I always say is I was never like, so obviously, I mean, we've already established Tandy science. Like I wasn't a cool kid, but like I also was like not a good nerd. Like I didn't have any video game systems growing up. Like I'm not that great at video games. Like I'm just not. Probably because those two are interrelated. So like I never really like. I had plenty of friends, but like I never really had like I was never like I wasn't the Regina George either of the popular kids or of the nerds. And so that kind of put me in this like limbo area for a while of like, what do I want to do? Okay, I'll major in business, but I'll specialize in computers, right? Because I still have this interest in computers, and some of my first like jobs as like a teenager in college were with computers actually, but it was like more of your traditional like IT, like break fix, messing around with hardware and trying to get stuff fixed. And I did that for a while. And then I got a job, an internship at a medical software company. And the owner of the company was a Maryland alum. And so they were looking for Maryland people, and interned there. And I kind of felt like it was a small company. It was like not venture backed. It was like a bootstrapped thing. And they had all these problems that I saw in like the processes and the way they were building software and the way they were deploying to customers. So I was like, well, I'm leaving and I'm going to go work at like an investment bank. And I actually accepted a job at an investment bank to go, do that kind of thing. And the CEO of that company sat me down and said, hey, I've got all these problems. And he starts outlining all of these like problems that I saw with their processes that I thought he was just like ignorant to. It's like, I really need somebody to help me fix them. I think you could do that. I was like, shoot, that sounds way more interesting than investment banking. So Ended up doing that. Ended up spending 10 years there, helping build that company. It was through a time of a lot of consolidation in healthcare software. So like we had to like mature ourselves really quickly. We went from like selling to like 1 and 2 users to selling to whole hospital systems, our software. And it's an interesting software industry to be in because you can't have anything be wrong, right? Like in medical software. Right? Like our software was used for patient management in radiology, specifically in like women's imaging. So breast cancer detection, like mammography. And so you can't be wrong. Like it's cancer.
Different kind of bugs.
Yeah. You can't really cannot be wrong. Although I always like made myself feel better about it because I was like, well, it's not a surgery. Like, I mean, there's people that write software for stuff like machines that are used in surgery. Like, no, thank you. Like, we can fix it in a day and like still be okay, right? Like, but it has to be fixed after that because then the whole point of us. Again, now I've learned more about breast cancer at that job than I ever thought I knew in my life. But the whole point of us doing screening mammography for women over 40 is to like catch it early because that's when you can really have a positive impact on outcomes. Anyway, so you can't be slow, but you also don't have somebody on the table. So that taught me a lot about like making it work for users and stability of software systems. A lot of the users there were physicians. Like the end users were the physicians themselves. And so that's like a really high bar. Also, like a minor thing that I say there is like, it's a very female dominated industry, right? Because like there are men with breast cancer, but it's very much a women's issue. Like 1 in 8 women will have breast cancer in their lives. And so as a man, you kind of have to prove you know what you're talking about before people will listen to you. So I had to know.
Absolutely.
And so it's like I say, so it's like being a woman in any other field in the world. Like
right, exactly.
So I got a little tiny microcosm taste of that.
Just a little, like enough to like
just enough to be empathetic. Right?
I don't understand.
I don't understand, but I understand.
But I hear. Yeah, absolutely.
And so that was great because it taught me like how much like that being an expert isn't the most valuable thing, but knowing what you're talking about, and actually more importantly than that, saying you don't know when you don't know something
huge
as being like one of the most important things you can do.
Absolutely.
And so that was really great. And that kind of cemented me into software from then on. And then I jumped a couple different places. I spent time and so I spent a lot of time there. That was like through the evolution of DevOps becoming a thing.
Yeah.
So like DevOps became a thing while I was running product engineering at that group. And so then I kind of got interested in like developer productivity and developer experience because that was the thing that was slowing us down the most. It was like how much we could get our developers, focused on the thing they wanted to do, which is like coding this new thing or fixing this problem. And so I spent some time then after that in DevOps, and then I was a GitLab user, and then I had a buddy getting recruited to GitLab. And I was like, oh yeah, it's probably a company too. And ended up there, but I got on the bus in a different place. I started actually, Brandon, you were talking about customer success and pre-sales. When I started, there was only pre-sales people. There were 0 customer success people. Again, fast growing startup. So I was customer success post-sales person number 1. And I helped build a professional services group to help our customers be successful with using the software. Then I spent time back in product, which is like my original love. I owned our CI product for a time. And then, I told the story earlier about how I got recruited over to evangelism. But so it's a winding road to get to where I am. But also, a lot of traditional things. But I do point out, I do not have a computer science degree. So
that's right. It's still not traditional. And really, I think one of the things that I've learned from talking to a lot of different people is that I don't think there's really such a thing as a traditional path in almost any career. I really don't think that my way of getting into teaching was a traditional path, honestly. And I definitely don't think I was a traditional teacher by any means. I thought I was a great teacher. Thank you very much. But Brandon, you also obviously like had a meandering path that eventually got you into DevRel. You do have a computer science degree, but it took you to a completely different place at first than software, right?
Pretty much, yeah. So part of that was I graduated college in 2009. And if you remember the 2008 recession, well, we weren't out of it by 2009. So, I studied computer hardware engineering in college and loved learning how to make CPUs and microcontrollers. And I thought for sure I'd be working at Intel or AMD when I graduated. But no, 2009. So I got one job offer from a company I'd never heard of called Harris in a small town of Melbourne, Florida. And so I took it. And that job was actually as a test engineer. So I wasn't even writing code. I was writing tests. And like Harris, looking back on it, was really far behind. I mean, yes, some people were writing. We did have software unit tests, but most of the tests were manual, what we call integration tests. And so I would write binders, like 500-page binders of very detailed step-by-step procedures on how to test equipment, making sure every test was isolated, reproducible, not impacted by other tests. And that's what I started off doing. And so I'm thankful for it. But because it taught me that, how important testing is. And a lot of times testing becomes an afterthought, especially in the waterfall model. And even today, like what people call agile and Scrum is really just like agile waterfall. And so testing always gets kind of kicked to the side and, when timelines get cut short. But I have an app I have a couple apps in the App Store, but only one of them is open source. It's called GitTrends, GitTrends. And it's an app that helps you monitor your GitHub repos. I know PJ and I have talked about expanding it to include GitLab repos, which still totally down for.
Yes.
But if you check out that app, it has a whole suite of unit test code. You can go to, by the way, gittrends.com, GitTrends.com. And you'll see all the unit testing, the UI testing. And in fact, if I had to bet, there's probably more test code than there is app code. And all of that comes from my roots and where I started. And
it's your passion.
Because on projects like this, like it's just an open source project that I do for fun. I don't make any money off of it. It's free to download from the app stores. The code is literally open source, so anybody can also fork the repo and see exactly how it works. I'm not hiding anything. But as like an indie dev, an individual developer on the project, if I didn't have these suite of tests, then I would be hosed, because anytime you make a change, like once your app gets to a certain size, anytime you change one thing, you don't know what that impacts. And you might know. I mean, I know the code base really well. I've written every line of code that's in it, or at least reviewed every code. There's been a lot of community contributors as well. But there's things that you just might not think about when you're fixing and focused on fixing this one small bug in this one small part of your code, that it could blow up something else. And having testing there is super, super important. And that's what I learned at my first job. And I had no ambitions of being a test engineer. It wasn't like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like, I want to work as a test engineer at a company called Harris in a small
my
town in
biggest
Florida.
dream.
But I've kind of learned that you, as long as you're open to new opportunities, and it definitely helps knowing what you want and what you're passionate about, and then not being afraid to take that leap of faith and jumping to that new opportunity. Because I've had that happen to me a couple times, where even when I worked at Harris, there was this cool contract for Royal Caribbean, and I was like, working on cruise ships, I could travel the world, I'm in. And then while I was working on my MBA full-time, doing night and weekend classes at University of Florida. And that got me excited about doing a startup. And I took that leap of faith to move to California, join a startup called Xamarin. And then it's these leaps of faith combined with knowing what kind of gets you excited, what you're
Yeah.
passionate about, that I found to at least so far be really successful, because I'm loving where I am now. I like.
Leaps of faith are so important. That idea of like seeing an unknown and being like, I mean, I could, I guess, and then like giving it a shot, and that's an important skill and an important risk to take, because unless it's catastrophic, which it usually isn't, the risks you take end up being the great stories you share later. If it goes really badly, there's still something you can learn from it. You know, there's something that can go well, but overwhelmingly, I think that opportunities are scary, and I think it's okay to admit that and say that, like, yeah, it's going to be terrifying. You're not going to know what's going on, but there's possibly something valuable there for you, and it's important to take those risks. Brendan, tell us about your favorite risk you ever took.
My favorite risk I ever took. Oh, jeez.
The riskiest. What's the most dangerous thing you've done?
The most dangerous thing I've done.
Career and non-career.
I was just saying career. Okay, so career-wise, so I've talked about this medical software company I was with. There was this new device coming out. You might have heard of it since then, though. It's called the iPad. And I decided, so like that. I try not to make this like a 20-minute thing on learning about breast cancer, but your hereditary risk of breast cancer is like vastly different depending on your family history, right? Like, so,
Yeah.
and then even more so your risk of a breast cancer that's going to be like bad, right? Like that's going to develop into something really bad. Like if you have on your maternal side, a history of premenopausal breast cancer, that's way different than if you don't. So anyway, that's just to say that those history forms you fill out at the doctor, right? Like important. Do have some value, and yes. Especially have some value in this context. And so of course we had like forms that you could fill out, and like, you know, our advanced technology would print your answers from last year on the form, right? Like, ooh, watch out. and when the iPad came out, I was like, this is a game changer. Like, we're going to build a thing that's like one question at a time on the iPad. People can click and and it was risky because everyone's like, no, like all of the people, like, you know, again, your patient population is people over 40, and so it's like skewed to a lot of the old, like a lot older population.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, no, they're never going to be able to deal with this technology. And I was like, no, this is different, right? Like this is like markedly different, and we're going to do it. And so I pushed and we built this thing. You know, then again, it had your answers from last year, but it walked you through one question at a time, really big, yes, no. And it was easier for people to use that were, you know, maybe elderly or had a harder time. Like rather than this like piece of paper that I've got to like figure out and like, wait, how old was my aunt when she had breast cancer? I don't know. And it was really
successful. You got to like figure it all out. Yeah.
And it's a good thing everybody does now. Now there's, you know, there's like a, you know, an iPad application for any.
You get handed an iPad everywhere. It's like, here, do this real quick. And you're like, yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. I was leaving Halloween Horror Nights. They were like, here, take an iPad, do it. I'm like, okay, yeah.
Yeah. So that was kind of risky. That was risky at the time. But I think it really paid off. Personal risky.
Oh yeah. Like really tell us something like,
I mean, well, I got married really
terrifying.
Let's say I got married.
That's right. You were saying that on our trip. Yeah. You were like, I got married at like 22?
I got married at 21. I got married at 21. Yeah. I was 21. But my wife is 6.5 years older than me. So I always say if you take our average age, it makes more sense. But sometimes when you know, you know, and we knew we wanted to have a family and we wanted to have time together before a family. So I got married right out of college. So what are you going to do? And I'm, you know, now it's now, you know, 13 years later. And we've got 4 lovely children. They're just the best.
Are they looking to be software developers? Can your kids code? Do you teach your kids to code?
I've been trying to get the oldest one. The oldest is 10. I don't know if he's interested. My daughter, who's just turned 8, she may be into it. I'm thinking. Yeah. But we'll see. And then the 5-year-old is like, maybe he will, but he is like the most hands-on kid. If that kid doesn't go into the trades, like I don't know what he's gonna do. Like I don't know what he's gonna do. Like all young boys are typically like trucks, right? Like, oh, look at truck. This is like something different with this kid. He is just fascinated with
He takes them apart and
working
he
with your
like
hands. I
has
have
these little
when I left to go to
overalls.
when I left to go to LA. So like I had him help me get the leaves off the deck. Like he did the deck, getting the leaves off the deck, and I did the backyard. Right, first
Yeah.
round of leaves. We've got lots of trees in our backyard. It's great, and and he like was like all worried about me being gone for a week. So I left him like the little electric leaf blower that plugs in, like ready to go. I was like, okay, you can ask mom, and you can do it if you want to. It's 5 years old, right? Like, and he did.
Yeah.
He did a round of leaf blowing while I
Aw.
was gone. So
I
I
gotta
don't know
put
if I'll
that
get
kid
a
to work.
program out of that kid. Like, he's too tactile. And
He's
then
gonna be the one putting the computer together.
yeah, exactly.
There we go.
And then the 3-year-old, I don't know. Well, 3-year-old, you don't know. But her initials are CEO, so we have big plans.
Hey, isn't that Brandon? Doesn't our friend, her first kid's initials are CEO?
Maybe.
I
Yeah.
think yes, they are because I remember her making a big deal out of it. Yes.
Okay.
So you and this person we know from Melbourne,
Yep.
children initials of CEO. Y'all are prepping them young. Final, we're really coming close on time. I guess like final question, like what's your least favorite app on your phone, man?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm going to go to my phone.
And why is
tell
it
you.
Slack?
Oh yeah, to be fair, I do have Slack on my phone. Oh no.
Do it.
Okay, there is this worst thing. I can tell Brandon. Maybe Brandon will build something. It is called calling out. I feel bad. It's definitely an indie developer. It's called Demosphere, and it's the app that we have to use to learn anything about my daughter's soccer. Right, and so it's like somebody totally developed there's a team, and you have your team, and then like you have messages, and I'm like, it is. Oof.
It's just a little bit of a mess, huh?
It's really rough. So I feel bad because that's like, again, some small indie developer who did their best. Oh, so call out. Okay, Reddit. Reddit is the worst app.
Oh,
I like Reddit. I've learned a lot from Reddit. I learned a lot from like just name a topic. If it's woodworking, if it's computers, I've learned a lot on Reddit. But man, their app is just so bad. And then their mobile site isn't that bad, but is constantly pushing you to the app. Yeah. And then it like doesn't do a good job of deep linking. Like, it doesn't like it'd be like, here, just continue in the app right here. And it's like, I'm in the app store for the app that I
please don't
like,
do this to me, Reddit.
And
that's why you got to use third party.
I was gonna say, yeah. Shout out to Narwhal, Narwhal is the Reddit app that I use.
Yes, right. No, I have a third party app that I use too.
I'm a Reddit is fun guy personally.
Oh, look at this! We could have a Reddit third party.
That's right, man. Listen, this has been a great first show, kind of like almost like a pre-show, kind of, because like we're still working on our website, but like there's a great sense that this is going to be something fun. I think, right? Thank you very much, Brendan, for joining us. I know that you're busy at work, so we're going to let you go. Brandon, I know you're busy at work, but your day just started a little bit ago because you're over on the Pacific Coast. This has been the revamped 8-Bits, and man, I guess that's it. That's us signing off. Thank you. Any last words from anyone?
We'll see you here. We're going to be streaming shows the same time every week, so that'll be 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Pacific, and that's correct. Oh, do the math. 1 p.m. to 2 p.m.
1
Eastern?
to 2 Eastern. So we'll figure out the UTC eventually.
Find us here on Tuesdays. Subscribe to the podcast, and we'll see you next time.
Have a good one, y'all. Beep, boop.